I thought I had everything I ever wanted: a loving husband, our cozy home in Boulder, Colorado, and dreams of starting a family together. David was everything a woman could ask for: kind, patient, supportive. We had been trying to have a baby for 8 months, and while the disappointment was growing, David never made me feel like a failure. But I made one catastrophic decision that destroyed everything beautiful in my life, and I am still living with the consequences today. Before I share what happened, let me know where you are watching from, and please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Now let me take you back to 2 years ago when I believed I was living my perfect life. My name is Maeve, and 2 years ago, I was living what seemed like a fairy tale. David and I had been married for 3 years, and our life together felt like something out of a romance novel. Our three-bedroom house sat nestled in the foothills just outside Boulder, with large windows that let in the mountain light every morning. David worked as a software engineer for a tech startup downtown, while I handled marketing campaigns for a local outdoor gear company. Our mornings started with David making his famous blueberry pancakes, while I brewed coffee in our sunny kitchen. The smell of butter and vanilla would fill the house, and we would sit at our breakfast nook planning our weekends. Every Saturday, we would hike different trails in the Rocky Mountain National Park. David would pack our lunches in his worn leather backpack, and I would bring my camera to capture the aspen trees and wildflower meadows. Those hiking trips were our sanctuary, where we talked about our future children and the adventures we would share as a family. After 8 months of trying to conceive, I started feeling the weight of expectation. Every month that passed without a positive pregnancy test felt like a small failure. David never pressured me, never made me feel inadequate, but I could see the hope in his eyes slowly dimming each time I shook my head sadly. He would hold me close and whisper that we had all the time in the world, that everything would happen when it was meant to happen. His patience only made me feel more pressure, though he would never understand that. I threw myself deeper into work, taking on bigger campaigns, and staying late at the office. My latest project involved promoting a new line of hiking boots, which meant meeting with various outdoor enthusiasts and local business owners throughout Denver and Boulder. It was during one of these meetings that my carefully constructed world began to crumble. I was sitting in a coffee shop on Pearl Street, waiting for a client to arrive, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Maeve, is that really you?" The voice sent ice through my veins. I turned around slowly, knowing exactly who I would see, but hoping I was wrong. Tyler stood there with a confident smile, looking nothing like the man I remembered from 5 years ago. He wore an expensive gray suit that fit him perfectly, and his once unkempt hair was styled professionally. His green eyes still held that magnetic intensity that had drawn me in when I was 23, but now there was something different about him, something that seemed more controlled, more polished. "Tyler?" I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "I live here now," he said, gesturing toward a chair across from me. "Mind if I sit? I would love to catch up." Everything in my rational mind screamed at me to politely decline and leave immediately. Tyler had been controlling and emotionally abusive during our 2-year relationship in college. He had isolated me from my friends, monitored my phone calls, and had even shoved me during arguments on more than one occasion. I had spent months in therapy after our breakup learning to rebuild my self-worth and trust in relationships. But something about his demeanor caught me off guard. He seemed calmer, more mature. When I hesitated, he held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "I know what you are thinking," he said quietly. "I know I hurt you, and I know you have every right to tell me to leave. But I have spent the last 5 years working on myself, going to therapy, learning about the damage I caused. I would really appreciate the chance to apologize properly." Against every instinct, I found myself nodding. "Okay, but just for a few minutes." Tyler sat down and immediately launched into what seemed like a genuine apology. He talked about anger management classes, individual therapy, and how he had come to understand the patterns of abuse he had learned from his own father. He told me about his successful consulting business, his commitment to personal growth, and how he often thought about the pain he had caused me. "I was angry and insecure back then," he said, looking directly into my eyes. "I took my own self-hatred out on you, and that was inexcusable. You deserved so much better, and I hope you found it." I told him about David, about our marriage and our life in Boulder. Tyler listened with what appeared to be genuine happiness for my success. When my client arrived, Tyler stood up immediately and shook hands with both of us before leaving his business card on the table. "I understand if you never want to see me again," he said, "but if you ever want to grab coffee and talk more, I would really value that opportunity." For 3 weeks after that encounter, I tried to forget about Tyler completely. I threw his business card away that same evening and told myself that seeing him was just a strange coincidence that meant nothing. But I could not stop thinking about how different he seemed, how sincere his apology had sounded. During quiet moments at work or when David was absorbed in his evening programming projects, my mind would drift back to that conversation. The old Tyler had never apologized for anything. He had always found ways to make me feel like I was overreacting or being too sensitive when he hurt my feelings. This new version seemed like a completely different person. Against my better judgment, I found myself curious about his transformation. One afternoon while David was at a work conference in Denver, I retrieved Tyler's business card from the kitchen trash can. I sat on our living room couch staring at his contact information for nearly an hour before finally sending a simple text message. "Hi Tyler, it is Maeve. Would you like to meet for coffee sometime this week?" His response came within minutes. "I would be honored. How about Thursday at 2 p.m. at the same place we met?" The Thursday meeting felt harmless enough. We talked about our careers, our personal growth, and our memories from college that did not involve the painful parts of our relationship. Tyler was charming and attentive in ways I had forgotten. He remembered small details about my dreams and interests that even David sometimes overlooked. When I mentioned my struggles with getting pregnant, Tyler listened with genuine empathy and understanding. "You know," he said softly, "I always admired your nurturing spirit. You are going to be an amazing mother when the time is right." Those words hit me in a vulnerable place that David, despite his love and support, had not quite reached. David was logical and practical about our fertility journey. He focused on statistics and timelines and medical appointments. Tyler spoke to the emotional side of my longing in a way that felt deeply understood. We began texting regularly after that second meeting. Tyler would send me encouraging messages on difficult days and funny stories that made me laugh during boring work meetings. Our conversations felt innocent enough, but I knew I was crossing a line by not telling David about them. When David asked about my improved mood, I attributed it to a new yoga class or a successful work project. 6 weeks into our renewed friendship, Tyler suggested we meet at a park near his apartment instead of the crowded coffee shop. He said he had something important he wanted to discuss with me privately. I agreed, telling myself that we were just friends and that I was being overly cautious. The park was quiet that afternoon with just a few joggers and dog walkers in the distance. Tyler and I sat on a bench overlooking a small pond, and for a while we just talked about normal things. Then he turned to me with an intensity I recognized from years ago, but this time it felt different, more focused and purposeful. "Maeve," he said, taking my hand before I could pull away, "I need you to know that seeing you again has been the most meaningful thing that has happened to me in years. I know you are married and I respect that, but I cannot pretend that I do not still have deep feelings for you." Every rational part of my brain told me to remove my hand, stand up, and walk away immediately. Instead, I found myself frozen, staring into his eyes and feeling a familiar pull that I had tried so hard to forget. "Tyler, I cannot do this," I whispered. "I love my husband." "I know you do," he said gently. "But do you love yourself? Are you truly happy, or are you just going through the motions of what you think happiness should look like?" His words cut deeper than I expected. In that moment, All of my insecurities about my marriage, my fertility struggles, and my sense of purpose came rushing to the surface. Tyler seemed to see parts of me that I kept hidden, even from David. Before I could fully process what was happening, Tyler leaned in and kissed me softly. For a moment, I kissed him back, lost in the familiarity and intensity of his attention. Then reality crashed back in, and I pulled away abruptly. "I have to go," I said, standing up quickly and gathering my purse. "Maeve, wait," Tyler called after me. "Please do not run away from this. We both know there is still something between us." I drove home in a daze, my heart pounding and my mind racing. That evening, I could barely look at David over dinner. When he asked if everything was okay, I blamed stress at work and went to bed early. I lay awake for hours, replaying every moment of that afternoon and hating myself for the confusion I felt. 2 days later, I received a text from Tyler. "I know I stepped over a line, and I am sorry for putting you in that position, but I cannot stop thinking about you. Can we please talk?" I should have blocked his number right then. Instead, I found myself meeting him at his apartment the following week. This time there was no pretense of innocent friendship. The moment I walked through his door, we both knew why I was there. What followed was 2 months of the most intense and destructive affair of my life. Tyler was everything David was not: passionate, unpredictable, emotionally volatile. He made me feel desired in ways that my stable marriage could not match. Our encounters were filled with the kind of desperate intensity that comes from knowing something is forbidden and temporary. But as the weeks passed, I began to see flashes of the old Tyler emerging through his polished exterior. He became possessive of my time, angry when I could not meet him because of commitments with David. He started making subtle criticisms about my marriage, suggesting that David was holding me back from my true potential. "You are dimming your own light to make him comfortable," Tyler would say. "A real man would challenge you to grow, not just accept you as you are." These comments planted seeds of doubt about my relationship with David that grew stronger each day. I found myself picking fights with my husband over trivial things, feeling frustrated by his calm and steady responses to my emotional outbursts. Everything that had once felt secure and loving about our marriage began to feel boring and limiting. Then, 8 weeks into the affair, I discovered I was pregnant. The positive pregnancy test stared back at me from the bathroom counter, and my entire world tilted on its axis. I had taken the test on a Thursday morning while David was at work after experiencing nausea and exhaustion for several days. The two pink lines were unmistakable, but they represented a nightmare rather than the dream I had been chasing for months. The timing meant the baby could belong to either David or Tyler. We had been trying to conceive throughout the entire period of my affair, so there was no way to know for certain who the father was without a paternity test. I sat on our bathroom floor and sobbed for 20 minutes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I had done. When David came home that evening, I had managed to compose myself enough to act normal. Over dinner, he excitedly talked about a new project at work and asked about my day. I nodded and smiled in all the right places, but inside I felt like I was drowning. How could I tell the man who had wanted this baby for so long that it might not even be his? I called Tyler that night, while David was in the shower stepping out onto our back deck, where I could speak privately. "I am pregnant," I whispered into the phone. There was silence on the other end for several long seconds. Then Tyler said, "Are you sure?" I took 3 tests. "I am sure." "Whose is it?" The question hit me like a slap. "I do not know Tyler. That is the problem." "Well, you are going to tell David it is his right. I mean, you are still sleeping with him, so there is no reason for him to suspect anything." Tyler's casual assumption that I would lie to David about something so fundamental made my stomach turn. But what choice did I have? Telling David the truth would destroy our marriage and potentially ruin an innocent child's life before it even began. "I cannot just lie about this forever," I said. "You are not lying," Tyler replied smoothly. You are protecting everyone involved. David gets the baby he wants, the kid grows up in a stable home, and we can continue seeing each other without complications. The way Tyler talked about our situation like it was a problem to be managed, rather than a moral crisis, made me realize how differently we viewed what was happening. To him, this was about maintaining our affair with minimal disruption. To me, it was about the complete destruction of everything I had built with David. Over the following weeks, I told David about the pregnancy, and his joy was absolutely radiant. He cried tears of happiness and immediately started making plans for converting our spare room into a nursery. He bought pregnancy books and downloaded apps to track the baby's development. He would place his hand on my still flat stomach every morning and whisper good morning to our child. Watching David's pure excitement while knowing the truth was like swallowing poison every single day. But I was trapped between two impossible choices: destroy David's happiness by telling him about the affair, or live with the knowledge that I was building our future on a foundation of lies. Tyler, meanwhile, became increasingly demanding of my time and attention. He seemed to view my pregnancy as confirmation that our connection was deeper and more meaningful than my marriage. He started talking about us being together openly, suggesting that I should leave David and raise the baby with him instead. "Think about it," he said during one of our meetings at his apartment. "This baby could be ours. Do you really want to raise our child in a lie?" "And if the baby is David's?" I asked. "What then?" Tyler's expression darkened. "Then we deal with that when we know for sure. But right now you need to focus on us and what we could have together." His possessiveness intensified as my pregnancy progressed. He became angry when I canceled meetings due to morning sickness or prenatal appointments. He started showing up at my office unexpectedly, claiming he was just in the neighborhood. When I tried to establish boundaries, he would remind me of all the ways David supposedly failed to understand the real me. "I see who you really are," Tyler would say. "David only sees the version of you that makes him comfortable. Which one of us truly loves you?" By my 10th week of pregnancy, I realized I was in an impossible situation. Tyler was becoming increasingly controlling and manipulative, displaying all the same patterns of behavior that had made me flee our relationship 5 years earlier. But now, I was pregnant, and he knew secrets that could destroy my marriage. I started having panic attacks, waking up in cold sweats next to David, while he slept peacefully, completely unaware of the chaos in my life. During my prenatal appointments, my doctor expressed concern about my elevated stress levels and recommended that I consider counseling to help manage anxiety during pregnancy. The irony was not lost on me. I needed counseling because I was living a double life, but I could not tell a counselor the truth without risking everything. 3 weeks later, everything came crashing down in the most devastating way possible. The confrontation that destroyed my life happened on a rainy Tuesday evening in March. I had told David I was working late on a campaign deadline, but instead, I was at Tyler's apartment trying to end our relationship once and for all. The stress of maintaining the affair while pregnant had become unbearable, and I had finally found the courage to walk away. "I cannot do this anymore," I told Tyler, standing in his living room with my coat still on. "This has to stop. I am going home to my husband, and I am going to focus on my pregnancy and my marriage." Tyler was sitting on his leather couch, a glass of whiskey in his hand, and his expression was darker than I had ever seen it. "You think you can just walk away from me after everything?" "Tyler, please understand. I made a terrible mistake getting involved with you again. I love my husband, and I want to save my marriage." "Your marriage?" Tyler laughed bitterly. "You mean the lie you are living. You think David would still want you if he knew who you really are." "Stop," I said firmly. "I am leaving now, and I do not want you to contact me anymore." I turned toward the door, but Tyler stood up quickly and grabbed my arm. "You are not going anywhere until we finish this conversation." "Let go of me," I said, trying to pull away from his grip. "Do you remember how good we used to be together?" Tyler asked, his voice taking on that manipulative tone I knew so well. Before you convinced yourself that boring was better than passionate, David cannot give you what I can give you. David gives me respect and stability, I said, finally breaking free from his hold. Something you never understood. Tyler's face contorted with rage. Respect. He respects an idea of you, not the real you. The real you is standing here with me pregnant with a baby that might be mine. Even if this baby is yours, that does not change anything, I said, moving toward the door again. I will not let you manipulate me anymore. Tyler moved quickly, blocking my path to the exit. You are not thinking clearly. You are making decisions based on fear, not on what you really want. I want to go home to my husband, I said, my voice shaking with both fear and determination. No, you want to run back to your safe little fantasy because facing the truth about yourself is too scary. I tried to step around him, but Tyler grabbed both of my arms and shook me roughly. Look at me when I am talking to you. Let go of me right now, I demanded, struggling against his grip. Tyler's hands tightened on my arms, and I could see the fury building in his eyes. This was the moment I realized that his supposed transformation had been an elaborate facade. The Tyler I had fallen for again was the same abusive man I had escaped from 5 years ago, just with better packaging. You are going to regret this, he said through gritted teeth. You are going to regret choosing him over me. I broke free from his hold and stumbled backward toward the staircase that led down to the building's exit. Tyler followed me, still talking, his voice growing louder and more threatening. You think you can just use me and throw me away? You think you can pretend this never happened? I reached the top of the concrete staircase and turned to face him one final time. I am done, Tyler. Do not call me, do not text me, do not show up at my work. This is over. That was when Tyler snapped completely. In one swift movement, he shoved me hard in the chest with both hands. I lost my balance and fell backward down the concrete stairs, tumbling and hitting each step, until I came to rest at the bottom landing. The pain was immediate and excruciating. I could feel warmth spreading between my legs, and I knew immediately that something was terribly wrong with the baby. Tyler stood at the top of the stairs looking down at me with a mixture of shock and rage, but he made no move to help me. I managed to pull my phone from my purse with shaking hands and called 911. Within minutes, paramedics arrived and rushed me to Boulder Community Hospital. The bleeding had intensified during the ambulance ride, and by the time we reached the emergency room, I was losing consciousness from pain and blood loss. David arrived at the hospital 40 minutes later, his face white with panic. I was already in surgery to address internal injuries from the fall, and the doctors had delivered the devastating news that I had lost the baby. David sat in the waiting room for 3 hours, not knowing whether I would survive the night. When I finally woke up in my hospital bed the next morning, David was sleeping in the chair beside me, still wearing his work clothes from the previous day. His hand was resting on the edge of my bed, and I could see the dried tears on his cheeks. "David," I whispered, and he immediately woke up and reached for my hand. "Thank God," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought I was going to lose you." The doctors explained that I had suffered a miscarriage, along with a concussion and several bruised ribs. They asked me repeatedly about the circumstances of my fall, and I told them I had slipped on wet pavement in the parking lot at work. David never questioned my story. He was so focused on taking care of me and processing our loss that it never occurred to him to doubt my explanation. For the next week, David waited on me hand and foot. He took time off work to drive me to follow-up appointments, made me nutritious meals, and held me while I cried about losing our baby. His gentleness and devotion made my guilt even more unbearable, but I could not find a way to tell him the truth without destroying both of us. Tyler called my phone constantly during my recovery, leaving voicemails that ranged from fake apologies to threats about what he would do if I told anyone what really happened. I deleted every message without listening to them completely, but the harassment continued. 2 weeks after the miscarriage, David was working in his home office when my phone rang on the kitchen counter. I was upstairs resting, and David answered the call without thinking, assuming it might be my doctor or my boss checking on my recovery. Maeve's phone, David said. Who is this? Tyler demanded. This is David Maeve's husband. Who is this? There was a pause. Then Tyler laughed coldly. Oh, this is perfect. David, right. There are some things you should know about your wife. David brought the phone upstairs to me, his expression confused and concerned. There is someone on the phone for you. He says his name is Tyler, and he claims he has something important to tell me about you. My blood turned to ice. Tyler was actually going to do it. He was going to destroy my marriage out of spite and revenge. Give me the phone, I said weakly. But David had already put the call on speaker, and Tyler's voice filled our bedroom. David, I think you deserve to know that your wife has been having an affair with me for the past 3 months, the baby she lost. There is a good chance it was mine, not yours. David stood frozen beside our bed, staring at me with an expression of complete shock. Tyler continued talking, providing details about our meetings, our text messages, and intimate details that only someone who had been sleeping with me would know. The night she supposedly fell at work, Tyler said, she was actually at my apartment trying to break up with me because she felt guilty about cheating on you. That is when she really fell. Down my stairs after I pushed her. David ended the call and set the phone down on our nightstand. The silence in our bedroom was deafening. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears as I watched the man I loved process the complete destruction of everything he thought he knew about our life together. Please let me explain, I whispered. David sat down heavily in the chair across from our bed, his face pale and his hands shaking. Explain what exactly? That you have been lying to me for months. That you were cheating on me while we were trying to have a baby together. That our baby might not have even been mine. I started crying, but David held up his hand to stop me from speaking. The night you lost the baby, he said quietly, I sat in that hospital waiting room thinking I might lose the 2 most important things in my life. I prayed to a God I do not even believe in, begging him to save you and our child. And the whole time you had been betraying me with your ex-boyfriend. David, I am so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. You never meant for it to happen. David's voice was rising now. You accidentally started texting him. You accidentally met him at coffee shops. You accidentally slept with him for months. I had never seen David angry before, and his fury was terrifying in its quiet intensity. He stood up and walked to our bedroom window, looking out at the mountains we had hiked together so many times. I loved you, he said without turning around. I loved you more than I have ever loved anything in my life. I thought we were building something beautiful together. We were, I sobbed. We still can. Please, David. I will do anything to fix this. There is nothing to fix, he said, finally turning to face me. You made your choice. You chose him over me, over us, over the family we were trying to build. And now, there are consequences. David left our bedroom and spent the night in the guest room. The next morning, he came back with a suitcase and began packing his clothes. What are you doing? I asked. I am going to stay at my brother's house while I figure out what to do next, he said without looking at me. You should probably call a lawyer. David, please do not do this. Please give us a chance to work through this. He stopped packing and looked at me with eyes that held no trace of the love I had taken for granted for so long. Maeve, you destroyed us. You destroyed our marriage, our future, and our baby's life. There is nothing left to work through. David filed for divorce 3 days after moving out of our house. The proceedings were swift and businesslike, handled through lawyers with minimal communication between us. Colorado is a no-fault divorce state, so my adultery could not be used against me legally, but David made it clear he wanted nothing from me except his freedom. Our house was sold within 6 weeks. David kept most of the furniture and moved into a condo closer to downtown Denver. I was forced to move in with my older sister Sarah in Aurora, bringing only my clothes and a few personal belongings. Everything I had built over 3 years of marriage was gone dissolved, as completely as if it had never existed. The worst part was facing Sarah and trying to explain what had happened. Sarah had loved David like a brother, and she was devastated by our divorce. When I finally told her the truth about Tyler and the affair, she was quiet for a long time before speaking. "I do not understand how you could do this to David," she said. "He was the best thing that ever happened to you, and you threw it away for someone who hurt you before." "I know," I said. "I do not understand it either." Sarah let me stay in her spare bedroom, but our relationship was strained. She was grieving the loss of David from our family as much as I was, and my presence in her house was a constant reminder of the choices I had made. I lost my job 3 weeks after moving in with Sarah. My performance had suffered dramatically during the affair and the aftermath, and my boss finally ran out of patience with my missed deadlines and distracted behavior. Without David's income and with only minimal savings, I was financially devastated, as well as emotionally destroyed. Tyler disappeared completely after his phone call to David. He changed his number, moved out of his apartment, and seemed to vanish from Boulder entirely. I later learned from a mutual acquaintance that he had moved to California for a new business opportunity. He had accomplished his goal of destroying my marriage, and then he simply moved on, as if nothing had happened. The first 3 months after my divorce were the darkest period of my entire life. I spent most days in bed, getting up only when Sarah forced me to eat or shower. I had no job, no money, no home of my own, and no relationship with the man I still love desperately. The weight of my choices felt crushing, and there were many days when I wondered if I would ever feel human again. Sarah finally staged an intervention in July, 3 months after David had left. She sat on my bed and told me that I needed to either get professional help or find somewhere else to live because watching me destroy myself was becoming too painful for her to bear. "I love you," she said, "but you have to start taking responsibility for your life. You made these choices, and now you have to figure out how to live with them." The next day, I called the mental health center in Aurora and made an appointment with a therapist named Dr. Patricia Morales. That first session was excruciating. Sitting in her office and saying the words, "I cheated on my husband with my abusive ex-boyfriend" out loud made everything feel real in a way it had not before. Dr. Morales did not judge me or try to make me feel better. Instead, she helped me understand the psychological patterns that had led me back to Tyler, despite everything I knew about his character. "Trauma bonding is a real phenomenon," she explained. "When someone abuses you and then shows you kindness, it creates an addictive cycle that can be very difficult to break. Tyler knew exactly how to exploit your insecurities and make you feel special in ways that your healthy relationship could not match." Through therapy, I began to understand that Tyler had been grooming me from the moment we met again at the coffee shop. His apology, his apparent transformation, his attention to my fertility struggles, all of it had been calculated to make me vulnerable to his manipulation. Abusers often become very skilled at identifying and exploiting their victims' weak spots, Dr. Morales said. He sensed your anxiety about getting pregnant and your feelings of inadequacy, and he used those against you. I also joined a support group for women who had experienced domestic violence. Hearing other women's stories helped me recognize the patterns in my own experience and understand that Tyler's abuse was not my fault, even though my choices had been my own. One woman in the group, named Janet, had been married for 15 years when her ex-husband convinced her to leave her family and move across the country with him. Like me, she had lost everything: her children, her home, her financial security, before realizing she had been manipulated. The shame was the hardest part, Janet told me. Not just shame about what he did to me, but shame about the choices I made while I was under his influence. It took me years to understand that being manipulated does not make you weak or stupid. It makes you human. After 6 months of therapy and group counseling, I began to feel strong enough to look for work again. I found a position with a nonprofit organization that provided support services to domestic violence survivors. The pay was significantly less than my previous job, but the work felt meaningful in a way that marketing campaigns never had. My supervisor, Maria, was a survivor herself, who had rebuilt her life after escaping an abusive marriage. She became a mentor and friend, helping me understand that my experience with Tyler, while devastating, had given me insights that could help other women avoid similar situations. "You understand now what manipulation looks like," Maria told me. "You know how someone can seem completely changed while still being fundamentally the same. That knowledge is valuable." A year after my divorce, I wrote a letter to David that I never sent. In it, I tried to explain everything I had learned about myself and about the dynamics that led to my betrayal. I apologized not just for the affair, but for being too weak to recognize Tyler's manipulation before it destroyed our life together. Writing that letter was part of my healing process, but I knew that sending it would be selfish. David deserved to move on without having to manage my guilt or forgive me before he was ready. The last thing I heard about him was that he had started dating someone new, a teacher from Denver who shared his love of hiking and photography. I felt a sharp pang of loss when Sarah mentioned David's new relationship, but I also felt genuine happiness for him. He deserved someone who would cherish the love he offered instead of destroying it. 2 years after the divorce, I have built a small but meaningful life for myself. I have my own apartment in Lakewood close enough to my job that I can walk to work most days. I have made friends through my support group and my work with domestic violence survivors. I have started hiking again alone this time, finding peace in the mountains that David and I once explored together. The guilt and shame of what I did to David will probably never disappear completely, but they have transformed into something more productive. My experience has taught me to recognize the warning signs of manipulation and abuse, not just in my own life, but in the lives of the women I work with every day. I have learned that recovery is not about forgetting the past or being forgiven by the people I hurt. Recovery is about accepting responsibility for my choices, understanding why I made them, and using that knowledge to make better decisions in the future. Sometimes, when I am hiking alone in the mountains, I think about the life David and I could have had together. I imagine our children playing in the meadows, where we used to have picnics, and I feel the full weight of everything I threw away. But I have also learned that dwelling in that regret serves no one. The only way to honor the love David gave me is to become someone worthy of love again, even if that love never comes from him. I have not been in a romantic relationship since my divorce, and I am not sure when or if I will be ready for that again. Right now, I am focused on learning to love and trust myself, something I clearly had not mastered when I made the choices that destroyed my marriage. Dr. Morales often reminds me that healing is not linear, and there are still days when the shame feels overwhelming. But those days are becoming less frequent, and I am beginning to believe that redemption is possible, even for someone who has made choices as destructive as mine. The women in my support group often ask me what I would say to other people who find themselves being drawn back into relationships with former abusers. My answer is always the same: trust your instincts, even when your heart is telling you something different. If someone hurt you before, they will hurt you again, regardless of how much they claim to have changed. I also tell them that no matter how far you have fallen, no matter how much you have lost, it is never too late to choose a different path. The consequences of our worst decisions may be permanent, but our capacity for growth and change is unlimited. I will never get David back. I will never get our baby back. I will never get our house in Boulder or our hiking trips or our dreams of family vacations back. but I have gotten something else that I did not have before: the knowledge of who I really am when I am tested, and the determination to become someone better. Sometimes that has to be enough. Sometimes the best we can do is learn from our failures and use that knowledge to help others avoid the same mistakes. Sometimes the most powerful redemption comes not from being forgiven, but from forgiving ourselves enough to keep growing. I know now that real love does not require drama or intensity or the constant fear of loss. Real love is patient and steady and secure, like what David offered me every single day for 3 years. I was too broken to appreciate that gift when I had it, but I understand its value now. That understanding has to be enough because it is all I have left. But some days when I am helping a woman escape an abusive relationship or recognize the signs of manipulation, I think that maybe losing everything was worth it if it means I can help someone else keep what they have. That might not be forgiveness, but it feels like purpose. And right now, purpose is enough to keep me moving forward one day at a time toward whatever comes next. Have you ever been in a situation where someone from your past tried to convince you they had changed? How did you handle it? And what would you tell someone facing a similar choice? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is struggling with similar decisions. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming difficult situations. And please share this video with someone who might need to hear this message. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you recognize the warning signs that I missed. Remember, you deserve relationships built on honesty and respect, not manipulation and control.